Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
We're in Wave Media.
Please, we can kill it.
I ain't got time.
There's something out there waiting for us, and it ain't gonna land.
Get to the chopper!
What the hell are you?
Welcome back, Midnight viewers, to Yautja Fest. It's the latest edition. Hey, Patreon listeners here in the month of August. Hello, everyone else in the main feed sometime in September. We are back. It is another attempt to examine the lifestyles of predators everywhere. This is our first direct sequel to any of the films that have come so far. This is Alien versus Predator Requiem. Here's the trailer.
Oh my God. Guess nobody's home.
It was outside the window.
See? No monster. The town was completely overrun. What's the Army's evacuation plan?
Okay, that was part of the trailer because the majority of the trailer was just sounds. Lots of screeching and people shouting and guns going off and lasers blasting and face huggers chittering and alien motion trackers beeping, even though that sound is from 170 years in the future. But I do want to say one thing. At the time that this trailer came out, we were all so far over this franchise and concept that I didn't notice how good the trailer actually is. Now, I showed this movie as a projectionist back in 2007, and rewatching the trailer's great because the trailer starts the way the movie should have, which is it slowly introduces us to the town of Gunnison, Colorado, and it shows us the townsfolk, and it gives us the population. And then it shows the Predator alien ship crashing, and then the population turns into a counter and starts winding down as people in the town start dying in the trailer. It's a great fucking trailer for a terrible fucking movie. HP, what's your first experience with AVPR? Was this your inaugural journey on the ocean that is Requiem?
This literally when I watched this for this podcast was the very first time I've seen this movie. I'll tell you what, that trailer that you just described, that you played a little bit of a minute ago, I want to see that movie, because that's not the movie that I watched the other day for this podcast, but we'll get into it.
The first thing I noticed in rewatching the trailer, it was appreciably brighter. Like, for instance, you could see everything on screen. It was fascinating. Having seen the movie previously, both theatrically and on home video, and then again for this podcast. You know what I did this time? Turned up the brightness on my television screen all the way up, and I saw everything for the very first time.
I wish I'd thought of that, because that's one of my chief complaints, is that it is so infernally dark and murky. And frankly, the editing doesn't do this movie any favors either. But on the positive side, the things that I could see, the scenes that were bright enough for me to make out what was going on, I will say this, Father Malone, this might be my highest compliment of this movie, is the bits that I could see were actually better cinematically than the last movie, Alien versus Predator. This movie did feel more cinematic than that movie. That makes sense.
I do understand what you're saying.
I'm not suggesting that it was shot extremely well, but it's hard for me to explain that the texture, it didn't look as cheap as the last movie.
I understand what you're saying. This feels like a movie because this movie was directed by people who wanted to make a movie. And the other one was made by a guy who wanted to make a franchise by any means necessary. Those filmmakers here are the brothers Strauss. That's their credit for directing here. Written by Shane Salerno, the genius behind Armageddon. That's not my description. That's Michael Bay's description of him. Also based on characters and situations created by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Schuster and Jim and John Thompson. This movie stars Stephen Pasquale, Reiko Aylesworth, John Ortiz, Johnny Lewis, Ariel Gade, Sam Trammell, Robert Joy, in a role written for Adam Baldwin, but scheduling prevented him from portraying Garner once again from Predator 2. And the film also stars Tom Woodruff Jr. and Ian White as the alien and predators, respectively. This film starts immediately at the end of the last film. HP, what's the story here?
So the story here is, astute listeners to the podcast will remember that Alien versus Predator ends with the slain Predator being carried onto his ship by his comrades. And the final shot is a alien Predator hybrid chest burster coming out of this dead Predator. This movie begins at that very moment where the chest burst, the creature comes out of the Predator's chest. There's a firefight, and the ship ends up crash landing back on Earth before it can leave to get back to the Predator homeworld. So the plot is the ship is crashed. Oh, and by the way, there's also face hugger samples, critters, like in like glass cases, presumably for this Predator to seed other hunts. I assume that's why they're there.
Sure.
So it crashes. Not only does this we'll just call it, I hate to call it this because I think it's a dumb name, but the Predalien, as it's referred to, is not only is that on the loose and wreaking havoc, but these face huggers have gotten out when the ship crashes and almost immediately starts to seed this town in Colorado, this unsuspecting small town in the mountains. And it becomes it basically, they're trying to figure out what's happening and save the town before it's completely overrun with creatures. Meanwhile, there's been a distress signal sent to the Predator homeworld. This was actually cool, Father. This, I have to say, we're going to be, look, spoiler alert, we're going to be bagging on this movie a lot.
Oh, but we're going to kick the shit out of this movie. But there are some elements that are actually a lot of fun and interesting.
Yeah, namely this where the distress signal goes back to so you see the alien homeworld. And
The Predator homeworld.
I'm sorry, I said alien. I meant the Predator homeworld.
Yautja Prime.
Yeah, Yautja Prime. And it's cool looking. It makes me want to see more of it. So a Predator there, a Yautja intercepts the distress signal, gets into his ship, and flies to Earth, ostensibly to deal with this crashed ship, find out what's going on, and deal with any of these creatures that have escaped. And that's the scenario that we're presented with here in this movie. By the way, I didn't know when we set out to do this, when you gave me my homework, I didn't realize you were giving me the Robert Altman Nashville of Predator movies, because this movie is sprawling and not in a good way. Like when you were going through the cast list, there's so many. I don't think I know one character's name through the whole movie. That's it. There's probably there's at least 10, 12 main characters that you're trying to keep track of.
Do you know is it the lead character, Stephen Pasquale's character's name? Dallas Howard? Not Bryce Dallas Howard, who was an active actor at that moment in history. Bryce Dallas Howard was. But no, is it Dallas Howard?
Yeah, that's Dallas, because I think they use his name more than anybody. There's the sheriff, but that's not really his name. There's Dallas's ne'er-do-well younger brother. I don't know his name. There's a girl that has the hots for the younger brother. I don't know her name. There's
my favorite character because she gets pinned to a wall accidentally.
Who is that actor who was in Can't Hardly Wait and That Thing You Do? Ethan Embry?
Yeah.
The younger brother was like a poor man's Ethan Embry. I could not stop thinking about him.
Like a photostatic copy of him. There are very few recognizable faces in this movie. The only one I recognize is John Ortiz as Sheriff Morales, and that's only because I fucking love that movie, Kong Skull Island, and he's one of the scientists in that movie.
See, I recognized him too. He's the only one I recognized for a different movie. He was in Silver Linings Playbook. He was married to what's her name? The hell's her name? Why am I blanking on her name? The one
Jennifer Lawrence.
Her sister. Who's Save the Last Dance for Me? She was in one of the Bourne movies. You know what I'm talking about? Julia Stiles.
And Julia Stiles.
He's
Lumen
John Ortiz
on Dexter.
Yeah, he's married to Julia Stiles, but he's under so much pressure. He's stressed from the pressures of marriage and having to. He's really good in Silver Linings Playbook. That's what I remembered him from. But that's aside from him. I recognized no one else. I think you made the point that this is like Alien versus Predator, the CW. And
AVP CW, absolutely. It feels like a pilot for a CW show, and then fucking face huggers are jumping on people's faces.
Yeah, it has that look, that sort of, because this is 2007. That's prime time for the CW. I think, when did the Archie reinvention take hold on the CW?
A little bit later, but this is prime, like One Tree Hill and that entire wave of television actors who had already populated all of the remakes of horror movies at the time.
It's like post-Scream, I think.
It doesn't help that the movie rather is shot in Vancouver, like every fucking CW production.
Exactly. And like the CW, the people in this, there's people in this movie that are supposed to be high school kids or high school age, like
insanity,
fake Ethan Embry, but him and the girl that he's dating or he's trying to date and her bully gang that she's affiliated with, not gang literally, but just a bunch of tough kids. They all look like they're in their mid-20s and they're supposed to be playing even if they're seniors, they still look way too old.
And all of these people populating this town are involved in so many fucking subplots. It's out of hand. It's like when we talked about Alien versus Predator, I said it doesn't endear a character to us for them to rifle out some line of dialogue about I have a family at home. Oh, okay, now I care about you. This film seems to double down on that idiotic notion by giving us a bunch of stories with characters we don't care about in the most cliched plots possible. Here is the brother, the bad boy brother who's been in prison, returning to the small town. How's he going to fit back in? And his younger brother, his ne'er-do-well younger brother who's constantly being beaten up and he can't get the girl, but he's trying real hard. And now the military woman returning home and her daughter doesn't recognize her. And what is any of this? There's a face hugger on a hunter in the forest right now, and something's going to burst out of them, and none of your stories are going to matter. But we spend so much time with their stories in this 90-minute movie.
It's exhausting. My head is spinning in the first 15 minutes because they're throwing character after subplot. And these subplots, you can see them coming a mile away, like this sort of high school kid who's trying to get the girl, but her boyfriend's a bully and all this. And then, like you said, the military mom comes home and the daughter, she's having trouble adjusting to her having her back. There's the sheriff, there's this hunter and his son I think they're the first people that are killed. I will say this movie is not afraid to get really ugly, like very distasteful. Like, I'm no prude when it comes to movies, whatever, but it gets ugly quick. So the ship crashes and this hunter and his young son, what's the kid supposed to be, like 9 years old or something?
Yeah.
They go out to investigate the ship, and one of the face huggers jumps at the father, who shoots it with his rifle, but the acid from the face hugger's blood gets on his arm and the arm falls off. In front, the child is watching all of this. And then the face hugger comes out and slams on the dad, and then it slams on the kid. And then they wake up later, and the son wakes up just in time to watch a face hugger burst out of his father before another one bursts out of him. Man, it is dark.
This is the assault on Precinct 13 of Predator movies.
Sure.
No holds barred here. Look, you've got young filmmakers. This is their first film. They've been pitching a Alien versus Predator movie since they had come to Hollywood. They are a couple of visual effects guys. Okay. They had moved out after seeing Aliens. So inspired were they that they came out and tried to get a job on ILM, ended up working freelance on a bunch of properties, ended up forming Hydraulics, which is their visual effects company. They did a bunch of music videos and stuff. They would eventually do that movie. What was it? Something in the Sky.
Skyrise.
Was it Skyrise?
Either that or Skyscraper. I know the one you're talking about.
No, it was the one where the people are being taken up into the alien ships, like the Rapture.
Oh, not the Rock movie.
No, not that thing.
All right, I'm going to look it up here. Requiem. I know the one you're talking about because I looked up there.
Skyline is the name of that movie. Yeah, with Eric Balfour, who was a guy I thought was going to be a huge actor, but then ended up doing virtually nothing. Yeah, they'd eventually do Skyline as their next feature, and they produced a bunch of sort of offshoots of it. But this is the movie that they wanted to do, and they, like I said, they pitched their own version of Alien vs. Predator that got turned down. That was before the Paul Anderson movie. And then when this movie came together very quickly, which feels like we got to keep the rights situation, like we made enough money on the last one, but we got to make this real quick with the crew that we already have. These guys got hired with a month to make the movie. So that's where the behind the scenes is where we're at.
But if you're working on a very tight timeline and you're trying to make this thing ostensibly on the cheap and be efficient about it, like the last thing that I would do is deal with a movie that is so, I keep using the word sprawling, but there's no other word for it. There's so much ground to cover with every subplot. And it gets so exhausting trying to keep track of everyone when all you're really doing as a viewer, a fan who's coming to this movie, is you're just waiting for the mayhem to start. And it just takes forever. There's no this is a problem that we talked about with the last Alien versus Predator movie. There's no suspense. Really, this movie is mostly about gore, I think, because like I said, it's not afraid to get ugly. There's a lot of gory, nasty effects with this. It's an R-rated movie, correct? It wasn't PG-13.
But the previous film was PG-13 and was much derided for that.
So if you came to this looking for a lot of blood and a lot of violence, then you came to the right place. My problem with it was that I just found some of it, again, at the risk of sounding like a prude, I just found it distasteful. Not to skip ahead too much, but there's even a scene where the predators or the aliens are taking over a hospital. And there's a woman there, a pregnant woman, who's being attended to by a nurse. The nurse is dispatched by the alien. And then the predator alien comes in and impregnates a pregnant woman right there. And then
multiple times.
Right. And then through plot machinations, the heroes end up there. We'll talk about why and how they're there. And this poor pregnant woman is webbed up like victims of aliens are. We've all seen it in all the alien movies. And sure enough, the chest bursting happens. But like you said, it's not just one alien. There's many aliens bursting out of a poor pregnant woman's belly. Ugh. It's just, I don't know. It just seemed in poor taste, in my opinion.
Look, this is this is the meanest of any of the films. And it did come out, like I said, my point was about talking about the brothers Strauss was these are young filmmakers in 2007. If you remember back then, the Saw movies and torture porn was all the rage. So it's not unexpected that it would seep into this movie, but it doesn't. You know what? I want to say, because I agree with you, it is distasteful. Nevertheless, it's the most memorable part of the movie. It's probably the best part of the movie, like all of those scenes. The actual best part of the movie is what you mentioned, which is that they have a predator character here, nicknamed Wolf, named for Winston Wolf, the Harvey Keitel character from Pulp Fiction, because he's a cleaner, which means he's technically named after Victor from La Femme Nikita, or just Nikita, if you're in France, because he's basically a bounty hunter character who picks up the distress signal. My favorite part of the entire movie, HB, is the fact that our lead predator alien is effectively Bruce Wayne, because he's just sitting in his chair. It's Bruce Wayne from Batman Returns. He's just sitting in a chair doing nothing. And then a little screen pulls down and says, hey, there's action on Earth. And he's like, I'm on it. And
it's cool because he goes to his back wall. There's a whole bank of different Predator helmets. And he's just like Batman. He picks one that is well suited for this.
He picks the one that looks most like Casey Jones from TMNT.
And yeah, I wanted more of that. Now, the thing of it is, I guess ultimately, the notion of of this crash and a predator having to come and clean up the mess and deal with it, that actually is a really compelling idea for a movie. Like, and actually ahead of its time in making the predator kind of the protagonist.
It would have been a private eye movie with the predator as the gumshoe. I fucking loved it.
I thought that would have been so cool, and I was hoping by the time you meet this predator, I knew that I wasn't getting that movie. There had been too many red flags leading up to that scene. But I guess there is a great idea for a movie there. It's just not written well. It's not executed well. It's not directed well, and it's not edited well. But someone somewhere could have made a great movie out of that idea.
In a lot of ways, this movie feels like a direct response to Alien versus Predator, whereas that film sided with the aliens. This one sided more with the Predator, and that one was PG-13. So they went not only R, they went hard R for this one. And according to cinematographer Daniel Pearl, he felt the previous film was too well lit with too many lockdown cameras. And he wanted to change that by turning off all the lights and swinging the camera around wildly on a cameraman's back.
So confusing. There was a scene where the Predator is finally squaring off against all of these xenomorphs. And as I thought in watching it, one particular scene, I thought that he had killed the Predator alien hybrid because it was so confusing. But no, they obviously leave that confrontation till the very end of the movie, as they should. But it's not a good sign when I'm losing track of characters and not understanding what's happening action-wise. It's not mapped out well. It's herky-jerky camera and editing, and it's just so dark, you can't see anything. I should have bumped up the brightness on my computer when I watched this. That was the smart thing to do, Father Malone.
And when I showed the movie, I controlled the brightness in the theater. By the way, let me just say, for most of you who are still going to movie theaters, and you should, if your screen seems dim, definitely go complain and tell them to stop skimping on hours on their bulb, because that's what they're doing.
Let me ask you actually another sort of question about that. Because everything is predominantly digital projections now, it's not the same process by which you have a light bulb that's illuminating a piece of celluloid. So how prevalent is that?
There's still a light bulb.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
You're still throwing light.
I guess you would have to be, because it's not like you're watching it. Yeah.
The bulb has not changed. It's still a big motherfucking xenon bulb, man. And so you can throw out the same amount of light, if not more, because the reflectors are even better now. The fact is, those bulbs are expensive, so you want to save hours on them. The best way to do that is to keep them just a little dim. And when they start going dim, just leave them until they finally blow out, which leaves, well, us literally in the dark.
So you said there's xenon bulbs. There's been no advances in LED or anything like that.
Hey, you know what? I've been out of the game a little bit, but they were filled with xenon gas when I was still a projectionist, when I was dealing with digital projectors.
Cool. No, it makes sense now that you say it, because obviously you're not watching a television screen with pixels. It's still an image that has to be thrown via a bright light up on a large screen. But I can't say, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the last time I watched a movie and I thought it was really dark. I don't know. Never really occurred to me that I could ask them to turn up the brightness.
The last time it happened to me and I went and complained was a Fast and the Furious movie. The whole end sequence took place at night and I couldn't see fucking anything. And I was like, am I at a drive-in in the middle of a busy city? Like, how am I not following action in this major blockbuster?
See, I have a similar issue, but with video games, when you start a video game like Assassin's Creed or whatever, there's usually set
the screen to, make sure the logo is just barely visible, and then you spend the rest of the game going, where is everything?
Yeah. So from experience, I just bump it up usually about as high as I can take it until it's blown out. Like, I don't want it to look too low contrast or whatever, but yeah, if I see that, I'm like, I'm not going to bring it up just a hair above visible. No way. I bump it up much brighter.
I'm not looking to be a character in the movie. Certainly not this movie. The entire military subplot exists so her character can fly them out at the end.
Yeah, she doesn't really do anything. So
there's no resolution between her and her daughter. What the story is, she's coming back from her tour of duty, and her daughter doesn't really know her, and they have no connection, and she feels bad about that. The husband has more of a connection with the daughter, and then the husband gets jumped and eaten by an alien, and mother and daughter go running. But again, that's it. And it's not like, father, Mom, I love you now. Thank you so much. I've missed you so much. There's no scene.
There's no arc to any of the subplots or their relationships. There's no. I could see if they introduced, let's say, this ex-convict character saying, "Oh, I wish I could have been the hero in my own personal movie or whatever," and then give him that heroic act to fulfill his character arc. There's none of that. Certainly not with this military mother. But again, if we're talking about this being distasteful, by the way, just to continue this trend, the military mom. There's the daughter and the husband. That's it. They're just a family of three. But the husband was a poor man's Jason Ritter. I couldn't stop thinking of him in this because he looked just like Jason Ritter. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing with me. But anyway.
That is an actor, by the way, named Sam Trammell, which I think some of our female listeners are going to be mad at you for saying that. But go ahead.
Why? Was he in something that I should know about?
Wasn't he? I believe he was in True Blood.
Whatever. Anyway, continuing this idea of it being distasteful, mildly, if not egregiously, the way that the father is dispatched is, so inexplicably, the military mom has brought a pair of night vision goggles back from whatever military situation for the daughter, it's like Chekhov's night vision goggles, because they're going to be used to spot an alien lurking. And The daughter can't get to sleep. She puts the goggles on. She sees a xenomorph lurking. She complains, "Mommy, or Daddy, there's a monster." And they do what parents do. It's a cliche. "Oh, there's no, are they under the bed? No. Okay." And then he goes to the window and he's like, "See, honey, there's no monsters." And just at that moment, the xenomorph like whips its tail in and kills the father right in front of this poor daughter. I'm just like, what the hell, man? It's like they don't miss an opportunity to crank up the sort of distasteful meter. If there's something that is going to be cruel and gross and unfortunate for the people in the scene, they leap at that opportunity, right? Why have a xenomorph impregnate somebody why don't we just have him impregnate a pregnant woman who's in this dire situation? Why, if you're going to kill a guy, why not kill him right in front of his daughter as he's trying to calm her fears about the monsters outside? It just seemed rather cruel to me. I keep harping on this, but that's really how I felt.
And it's an old joke because they had the same goddamn joke in the Monster Squad. "Daddy, there's a monster in the car." I said, "Oh, look, scary monster." And he turns on the light and the mummy is standing in there, like reaching out at him. Or was that might have been Mummy Daddy from Amazing Stories? I get them both confused.
I think that might be it. But that's
I'm saying is this is just the lazy fucking, that it's not even an original bit, because I've seen it done in a half dozen horror movies. This one's just being really mean about it. This one's being very Saw about it. Jigsaw.
Very.
The child has to see the father murdered in front of him. Look, this is several years after the events of 9/11, and we're all feeling a bit like anything is possible and we can all go at any time, and we're all still nervous, and we all know that monsters are real and can come out of the night and kill us. But this is a cheap knockoff movie. It is not saying any of those things. It's just a reaction and a copy of those like better ideas.
Exactly. But it's just, there's so much. There's a group of homeless people living in the sewer that figure into this because the sewer is connected to this forest where the xenomorphs are breeding. And I'm like, okay, is this another character that I have to learn who they are and what they're doing? No, they're dispatched very quickly. There's a battle that the predator. So finally, the predator does find these xenomorphs and they start to battle back and forth. And that's confusing because they change locations. And it's not always clear where they're going, but it's at a certain point they end up at a power plant, and
a nuclear power plant.
And we all can see where this is going because I'm like, okay, they're going to get into a fight, they're going to knock out the power.
You know what?
And now
HP, can I just say something, because that was something that was not confusing. That the plot you're talking about there, we get Wolf, the predator, comes down, finds the crashed ship, dispatches it, and then starts tracking the aliens.
Yeah.
And that leads him to that power plant where we watch him scan and see them go running in there. So we all know that and where we are. That's the only part that did make sense. That was the only geography that I was following and gave a shit about.
No, that aspect where the predator is tracking the xenomorphs, that all makes sense. What I'm saying is a couple of things. First of all, like they don't end up at the power plant immediately. They go to a school and then they're not at the school and then they're here. They kill somebody in a diner or some people in a diner.
You're talking about the xenomorphs and their pattern of behavior, which is fucking bonkers and makes absolutely no sense for what we have seen so far in the Alien series overall is the most organized alien species we've ever seen.
Right. But what I'm saying, ultimately, at the end of it all, when they ended up at a power plant, I knew exactly where this was leading. It was so unsurprising that, of course, they're going to knock the power out just to amp up the danger that's happening in this town. Because now the power's out everywhere. It's bedlam. People are trying to evacuate. And then the sheriff, and then the National Guard are brought in. I think the sheriff has contacted the National Guard to bring them in because it's chaos.
This is a situation where you would actually need the National Guard, where aliens
that makes sense.
Are taking over your town.
That makes sense. And that sequence I thought was actually amusing in a good way because they show up with all these tanks and weapons, and they are dispatched almost immediately by these xenomorphs. It's not even a fair fight. They're killed immediately. So they
And you know
end
what
up-
I was thinking during the military sequence of this?
Yeah.
There are very few military sequences in Aliens where we're watching that squad do their thing, but it's all skillful and amazing. And just compare it to what's going on here. They have the same resources, right? It's all, in fact, they have more resources here because they have access to lots and lots of military vehicles. Whereas in Aliens, they had to make one out of what is basically a forklift for pushing around airplanes. That's what that ATV vehicle was, right? And he made a fucking amazing, tense sequence when they land and are exploring for the first time. It's incredible. Here they've got all of these tanks and stuff moving into town, and we have an alien attack, and it's all worthless.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It leads nowhere. But another kind of, at least something that was logical to me in the midst of all of this stuff happening is after the National Guard are wiped out, the sheriff who has organized a survival party. It's him. It's this guy, Dallas, his brother.
It's all the subplots have come together.
They've finally all come together in a way, although the military mom is there. He gets one of the radios and he contacts a colonel to let him, in the army, an army colonel, to let him know what's going on. And can you bring an airlift to get us out of here? Like that, as he's talking to this colonel, you see the colonel on a military plane. And as the colonel's trying to keep the sheriff on the line or whatever, he's looking at footage of the National Guard getting wiped out, all of the body cams and everything. And then you see him running simulations to see how far this thing will spread, because it's clear that they know something that's happening. It's not clear immediately that they know it's an alien thing. They know that something's happening and they know that it's going to spread. That was cool because I knew, okay, because he tells them, go to the center of town. That's where the airlift is going to be. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, they're going to nuke the town. And that actually was logical and it made sense. And I thought it was like I said, a logical thing. But the thing that gave me the most amount of joy about this movie,
as the colonel?
Yes, because not because of him in this movie. First of all, he was the only guy next to Ortiz that I recognized and really recognized him. He's been in a million things.
He's great. I love him. Yeah.
This is going to be a bit of a digression, so indulge me on this.
Oh, boy.
So he, as you said, he's played by Robert Joy. He's been in a million bit roles. We've seen him in a bunch of stuff. But most intriguingly, Father Malone, I looked up his thing on IMDb. The thing, you and I may be the only ones who even care about this, but fuck it, I'm just going to go into it. He was in one episode of a 1990 TV show called, get ready for this, Maniac Mansion. Do you remember Father Malone? When Father Malone and I were in high school, we used to play this game called
Don't Be a Tune-In.
It was a point-and-click adventure called Maniac Mansion by LucasArts. Lucas used to make video games. And it was it was a little Rocky Horror because it was this mansion with a crazy evil scientist who's doing all of these things. And
it was as close to Rocky Horror as we could get at the time. And at the time, by the way, we couldn't even get it on video. If you wanted to see Rocky Horror Picture, you had to go to a midnight movie screening of it.
This TV show, which I have no memory of, and I'm pretty certain you don't have a memory of it. This show, Maniac Mansion, was a sequel of sorts to the game. It took place 20 years after the events of that original video game or computer game. But get this, okay? Here's the crazy part. The stars of this include, you ready for this? Joe Flaherty, Eugene Levy.
Oh my God.
Robin Duke, Martin Short, Deborah Thiecker, who was Gwen Fabian Blunt in Guffman. She was basically in Christopher Guest's repertory of mockumentaries. Tony Rosato, Andrea Martin, Dave Cronenberg is in this as himself. This show is bananas. I was so shocked to read about this thing. It ran from 1990 to 93. Obviously, you can tell from the cast list that it was Canadian in origin. It ran on Canadian.
Is this animated?
No, it's live action. It ran on YTV, which was a Canadian network, and it also ran on the Family Channel in the U.S. for 3 years. And I was just knocked out. This is the cream of the SCTV crop and others in this thing. I enjoyed going down this rabbit hole of Maniac Mansion about 1,000,000 times more than I enjoyed this movie, Father Malone. I'm sorry for the digression, but I had to mention it because I was so surprised by this information. Maybe we should look. I think they're on YouTube. I haven't looked it up. But they're there.
Oh, we're definitely going to be investigating. And I know I'm going to watch every episode at least once.
Yeah.
Let's talk the Predalien for a moment. Let's talk the fact that
I'd love to, I'd love to, Father Malone, but I couldn't make him out. Couldn't see him.
You saw him. Listen.
I didn't. I'm telling you, aside from a few herky shots of his head, I don't know what he really looked like, but I'm sorry, continue.
He looked like Barney. What in the initial draft of the script, the Predalien was supposed to murder everyone on board the Predator ship and then be dispatched. And then the ship was going to crash and the aliens were going to behave as normal, making a queen, taking over this town. And then the executive said, no, we liked that Predalien from the last one. Make that the villain. And so we get this based on the notion from Alien 3 that an alien will take on the traits of whatever host it has used genetically. So we have this alien/predator hybrid who somehow is a queen and controls the actions of the other aliens around it. And thus it can lay eggs somehow orally with no, because they've sort of logicked it in if you listen to any of the commentaries on any of these discs, that it's a stage in between the creation of the ovipositor. It's all bullshit. It's the stupidest innovation in any of these Alien and or Predator movies. It's the dumbest thing that somebody has added to the mythology. People say that this one is out of canon, which is a drag because some things in this movie I did like, but if it means that we can wipe out the Predalien from consciousness, let's go ahead and do that. Because it is not only clumsily handled, it is very dumb looking.
It is, but again, this is one of those things where it was established in Alien 3, you're right, that an alien will take on secondary characteristics of whatever it is, whatever host it's used. So it's not a bad idea. It's not executed well in the least for a myriad of reasons we've already stated, but it's not a bad. I didn't buy this idea. I was confused more than anything when the Predalien impregnates this pregnant woman, because it's not a face hugger that comes in and gets her. He attacks her in the hospital, and it's like a kiss that he gives her, and you can see the eggs going down her throat. And again, a wonderful, tasteful shot in a film filled with them. So I was confused.
You keep saying he, but it's a she. That's a queen.
Okay.
The Predalien, nicknamed Chet by the crew, because it's the most distasteful character they could think of, Chet from Weird Science.
Weird Science.
But Chet is a female.
Okay, I didn't think that through. It makes sense if this thing is producing eggs to impregnate other people. But again, it was all too confused. I get it. It's an alien type creature, and there's no character that's going to exposition something to give you a context for what it's doing. But at the same time, like, at least a predator, a normal predator, a Yautja creature, you know what you're getting. And it telegraphs its motivation and its equipment and everything it's doing very clearly. It picks up that spinning blade thing, and you know it's going to whip it around. By the way, one thing I have to say about the Predators, they are very poor shots in this movie from the very beginning, because this predator alien hybrid is running around the ship, and this is at the very beginning, one of the predators who's on the ship is using its shoulder cannon to try and target this thing and kill it. But every time it tries to shoot, it misses. I guess it's supposed to be that the Predalien is too fast. And that's what causes the ship to crash. It's that this thing is shooting wantonly.
Yeah. This thing is firing a projectile weapon inside a spacecraft, as if that won't depressurize everything and cause a crash, as it does. Not only that, HB, remember the absolute room full of badasses we met at the end of Alien versus Predator? The Ancient One alone would have been able to deal with anything. It's so insulting that they've gone with this. Why not just craft a whole new movie? Who cares? Why link it at all?
Also, because the Predators are always so conscious about if all else fails, if they're incapacitated or they're overrun, they are clearly taught as a race to self-destruct because they can't, especially in the case of an alien, because they can't risk that this thing is going to spread across the universe. So I guess ultimately, and in fact, that's what this wolf predator, the first thing he does when he lands on Earth and finds the downed ship, the first thing he does with the ship is he sets the self-destruct and blows it up so that it can't be found and any of the other creatures that are around will be dealt with. But what I don't understand is as they're trying to fight this Predalien, I don't see any of the other badass predators, like you said. Someone should have been like, all right, we made this isn't happening. We can't take out this thing. This is something we're not, all right, self-destruct sequence alpha. That's it. You wouldn't have a movie, of course, but doesn't that make sense? These are pragmatic creatures. They're taught to do this.
You are absolutely right. Like the one thing that we know about predators is that they will commit suicide rather than let things go out of their own control. And here we've got an entire ship of them, and we're just supposed to believe that this Predalien has bested every one of them to the point where that they've taken their final option away from them. Okay, makes a ton of sense.
It's really just exasperating.
And can I reiterate that my dissatisfaction with the continuation of the bony xenomorph skull? I cannot stand everything is now the warrior alien and not the sleek dome of the big chap from the first Alien. I know we're getting a lot of it in the new Alien Earth series, so I'm very satisfied. But I just want to say again, enough with the bony skull alien.
Here's a question I have for you. This is a bigger question. Do you think this movie represents the nadir of both franchises, the Alien and Predator franchises?
Yes, because the only place to go was up after this, right? I mean,
that's what I mean. There's only one way to go, and that's up, because it couldn't get any worse than this.
That is correct, because we will discuss problems with the future Predator films in the series, but they cannot and are not worse than this film. So yes, this is the lowest of the Predator films, definitely. I don't know if it's the lowest of the Alien films. It might be.
Yeah? You have problems with Prometheus, but that's more...
Oh, I have big problems with Prometheus.
Right. But that's purely story. We're not talking the craft of the movie itself.
Oh, no, it's gorgeous. Yeah. No, that's a gorgeous movie. And the performances are really good in it. And I like a lot of the action in it. I just don't think it's the Alien movie.
Right. That's what I was thinking as I'm watching this, because again, one of the beauties of this series of episodes that we're doing is I'm coming at it as a complete newbie to most of these movies. So I'm curious what the arc of these sequels is. Are we at the lowest point? It seems to me that we are, because I know that we were coming up to like Predators and then the Shane Black movie, and of course Prey and Badlands eventually. So it's comforting that it can't get any worse than this, because this was a bit of an endurance test.
Here's something that I did like, at least initially. It seemed that finally somebody was taking the alien blood seriously when the hunter shoots the facehugger and a mist of blood sprays the air, and then his forearm drops off like a log. I thought, oh, wow, somebody remembered that in that first Alien movie, just a few drops of blood from the facehugger ate through most of the hull of a ship. And I thought, wow, we're definitely going to get that. And we get a lot of it here. But then at a certain point, our lead character is sitting beneath an alien. It is literally on top of him. Yeah. And then he blasts open its skull and just runs away, and everything's fine.
Yeah. He would have been seriously incapacitated.
Dead.
Probably, he must have been killed. Because there's a moment where the bully, like the alpha bully, is does someone shoot an alien above him? There's somehow the alien blood gets on his face.
And it eats it
kills
away
him now.
immediately.
Yeah, which is another in a movie filled with horrible images. But that I agree with you 100% there. There's a lot of acid, blood stuff happening. They're not missing an opportunity to make something extra gross or extra give you that kind of shiver at something happening. And the acid blood's a big part of that.
That's a big part of Alien, the xenomorphs. And I hate when they skimp on it. And I hate that it has over time become more and more of just an irritant and less of a corrosive acid that will eat through everything. In that, I noticed in the new Alien series that when they have a container for the corpse of an alien, it's a heavy duty plastic underneath, like we would do here on Earth with a corrosive acid instead of more metal.
Right. But let's continue on this because we mentioned a few things here, but what else did we like about this movie? What else worked, if anything else? Because we already talked about the home world of the Predator. That was really cool.
2 suns on the Predator world.
2 suns? I bet I didn't notice.
Looked really hot there, which makes sense considering that's their thing.
It did. And effects-wise, I thought that whole sequence worked because the wolf Predator gets the signal. He brings up this heads-up display kind of thing, and you can see he actually plays back like a recording of everything that's happening on this ship, the Predalien escaping and running around and the thing going down. That all worked really well. So technically, I think some of the effects work, particularly I would say the use of CG in this, I thought it was actually pretty good. It was used effectively.
It certainly was, because everything that took place on the Predator ship with the Predalien attack was all CG. There were no practical sets there at all.
Looked great.
Well,
I have to admit, it looked great.
These guys are an effects company, basically, so they handled the majority of their own effects. And it like you said, it does look mostly great. Some of the facehugger stuff is sketchy, and a lot of the other effects are okay. But yes, overall, I do think the visual effects, when you can see them, are really good.
Right. Again, some of the shots, the scenes, things, it looked, again, I keep using this word, it looked more cinematic to me. There was a texture to some of the shots that I thought worked really well. It looked good. It didn't look like it's being shot on a bunch of sets. I believe that they were in this small town in Colorado. That all worked. That all looked fine. So that's another thing in the plus category. When you could see things, certain scenes looked pretty good.
That's definitely a plus, sure. Here's another plus. I don't have one. It's definitely not the screenwriting combo of the gun store owners and stoners. Let's get that joke in here somehow. Were those characters supposed to make us laugh in some way because they were stoned in the middle of all of this? And then were immediately and brutally murdered? The gun owners who seemed unable to handle guns. Why did they go to a gun shop? Can you? Maybe I dozed off, HB. Why did they go to a gun shop and not the police station when they needed weaponry?
One thing on that, I thought initially, the first thing I thought was, this looks like a pawn shop. And then I thought, this must be a gun shop. But no, it's actually, if you go back and watch it, it's a sporting goods store.
Yeah.
So on that basis, it doesn't seem all that illogical that these two stoners would be working there, because they're not purely selling firearms to people. That would be unsafe to have these guys working that kind of shop. But if they're selling camo vests and duck calls to hunters,
that makes sense that they're not adept with the guns, maybe.
Yeah. It's as if you worked, like here, Dick's Sporting Goods store here, it's probably elsewhere too. They used to sell, you can get like running gear, you can get sneakers, you can get skiing, you can get all this stuff. They used to also be able to sell you guns. So I look at it that way. Like you don't have to be an expert weaponsmith to work there. That part didn't bother me so much. It was goofy, and it didn't, I think they are looking for a silly, cheap stoner laugh, but that didn't bother me quite as much because I knew that they were just going to be dispatched almost immediately. It's like when low-rent Ethan Embry's manager at the pizza shop that he's working at ends up becoming part of this group that the sheriff is shuttling to the center of town. as soon as they picked him up, I knew that he was not long for this movie, because anybody who's even half of a prick in this movie gets it. And I think maybe that's maybe part of the point. Maybe there's a wish fulfillment thing happening here where you want to see these asshole characters get killed in awful ways. So that was predictable for me.
I wanted some of our leads to get killed in unpredictable ways. My favorite bit in the movie is when the predator, a wolf, dispatches two aliens with one of those spinning discs, and it slices them in half and then catches hold of one of our leads and pins her to a wall. It was really brutal and horrible and made me think about the predator in a way I haven't thought about him for a couple of movies, since maybe the first movie, where it was like, Jesus Christ, what are these people up against? Like that. I thought that effect was fantastic. I know it's gruesome to say that. What are you going to do? It was a great effect.
The effect was fantastic, but again, I'm left thinking about the poor aim of this predator, because
there's no poor aim. That girl ran into the shot. She ran like he accomplished his goal, and then she stepped in front of the blade.
I suppose that's the case. I guess she did. It was her fault that she ran into this blade. At the time I thought, can't you aim that blade any better, Predator? Like you just seem, it's like the joke that stormtroopers all have terrible aim because they can never hit anything they're shooting at in the Star Wars movies. That's how I felt about the Predator in this movie. But I see your point. Maybe it was her fault.
This Predator's got the blue juice. He's got the magic erase juice.
That made no sense to me at all, because he's investigating the ship, the down ship, before he blows it up. And he concocts this liquid, this blue iridescent liquid, from the cases that were holding the face huggers, and he mixes it with something, and somehow this juice, he pours it on things, and they just dissolve into nothing, presumably because he's trying to erase any trace of what's been happening. Like he pours it on the hunter and his son, and they just dribble away into nothing. But what was that stuff, and why did it have to, what does he mix? Maybe I just wanted too much explanation from this, but like, why is he using this liquid from this face hugger juice, and why is it, I was very confused by that.
That's always the best parts of these movies, man. This is the Predator 2 situation again, where he's using bathroom tile to help cauterize his own wounds. It's like, what was that about? I don't know. He's an alien. They do weird shit.
That's another fair point. Okay, I'll give you that one too.
Yeah, I love the blue dissolving juice, the Retcom serum.
Yeah. And every Predator movie has to have the requisite scene where the Predator gets knocked on his ass and
he's got to patch himself back up. Oh man, I love when the Predator has to patch himself back up. And it's like Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men when he's in that bathtub, you're breathing really heavy.
Yeah, there's a medical triage scene in every Predator movie, at least up to this point. I'm sure there'll be some in Predators and The Predator, but I'll have to wait and see, I guess.
It's like, remember Deckard, he has to break his fingers back into place at the end of Blade Runner.
Ooh, yeah. That sequence, because before I saw, this is a tangent, before I saw the entirety of Blade Runner and understood what the movie was, as a kid, I flipped over to HBO, let's say, and that scene where Roy is breaking his fingers, and this is for Pris, crack. That is for a 9-10-year-old kid, that's a heavy sequence, man, because he's just breaking 2 or 3 fingers in the guy's hand.
He's breaking Han Solo's fingers.
That's it.
You're 9 years old. That's Han Solo. And this android is fucking him up. It was horrifying. I agree.
It was so savage. And that's obviously the point. But man, when seeing these things out of context as a kid, it's a trip. Anyway, digression over.
Hold on one second. How long have we been talking?
Let me see. There's usually a counter somewhere, right? I guess it's been we started at about an hour, I think.
Right on. What else to say? Trying to think. I didn't really take notes this time because it was just too painful.
Let me look through what I have here. Oh, we can talk about the ending of the movie. We didn't talk about that yet. So the town, so they make their way, this little party of survivors make their way to the helicopter on top of the hospital. And they take off. It's the military mom. It's Dallas's brother, who has been impaled, I believe, by an alien tail.
Yeah, I
But
thought
he
he was
somehow
dead,
survived.
and then in the next scene he's there again. I was like, wait, what?
He's there again. So it's just the three of them on the helicopter. Oh, I should mention before that the Predator, I'm jumping all over the place. The Predator's shoulder cannon has malfunctioned. So the Predator has taken it off of his shoulder and fashioned it into a pistol. And Dallas, at some point, has found this pistol and he was using it to kill xenomorphs. Anyway, the three of them are on that chopper that takes off. The bomber comes and bombs the shit out of the town. It's nuked. It's gone. And the helicopter crashes because of the shockwave, but everybody survives. And then the military come and pick them up. And part of that is he surrenders this Predator pistol thing. And presumably they're taken to wherever they're going to go.
I'm surprised with the rest of the tone of this movie that they weren't all summarily executed, and then they take the Predator's pistol off of their corpses.
That would have made a lot more sense given what we find out. Because what happens is we cut to this military installation looking building, and Robert Joy's character, the Colonel, is walking with some haste with a briefcase, and he goes into a room where there's a woman there, someone of authority, and he opens the briefcase, and the woman says the world isn't ready for it, but the Colonel replies, "It isn't for our world, is it, Ms. Yautja?" and presents her with the pistol. The idea being it's the Weyland Yutani thing that we're going to see hundreds of years hence.
So far,
seeds of that.
we've seen Weyland, and that's the alien portion of it, the Yutani. We're now establishing that they're the Predator portion of things.
Yeah.
And was supposed to conclude with a dissolve to much later in the future, and that alien pistol in use by some sort of colonial marine contingent that have settled on a planet which is the alien homeworld, where a group of predators are fighting for their lives on the surface. The end. Alien versus Predator 3 was supposed to take place entirely on the alien homeworld with these space marines helping predators. Maybe they should have gone with that with this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a long way to go just to get that the Predator weaponry in the hands of the Yutani Corporation. It's a long way to go for that. You're right. If they could have just covered that with a crawl at the beginning and opened up on that Predator alien colonial marine conflagration on that homeworld, that would have been badass.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Some outpost somewhere? Because look, honestly, I wish they had made that third movie just so we could avoid the whole Prometheus nonsense. If you could make an alien homeworld canon, then you avoid all of the fucking engineers and their black goo bullshit.
But that's the big ending. That's the big reveal at the end of this.
Oh my God, Yutani Corporation is involved.
Yeah. So anyway, beyond that, I'm not sure what else there is to dig into this. We've talked about the poor acting. Have we talked about the poor acting? We talked about...
We haven't, but we don't have to. I don't think we need to pile on the poor actors who were saddled with this terrible screenplay, because make no mistake, it's a terrible screenplay. How this movie was not just about an alien, or rather a predator sitting in the home world, gets a distress call, goes, "What's going on there?" and then goes and investigates a case on Earth. I don't understand, but...
Yeah. And there's even moments, I don't think we talked about this, that come out of nowhere that make no sense. So there's this girl that's got the hots for the younger brother of the convict, and she entices him to go to the pool at the high school.
Because of course we're watching a fucking CW episode.
Right. So, but the whole reason behind this is that she can strip down to her underwear, and basically we can leer at this woman who's being seductive. It has no bearing on any of the events of the movie, because that's the moment where the lights go out because the power plant is destroyed. They got her there just so they could undress her so that everybody could leer at her. And that's it. It just,
I'd I'd like to point out that this was a time in popular culture where assless white women were constantly being ogled at in movies. And it's like, what are we even looking at here? And I mentioned earlier that so far from the Alien films we've seen, the aliens are very organized. They always have a purpose. They're always doing something. Like we never see an alien just resting, right? But their plan here makes no sense whatsoever. There's no central place they're working out of. It's all just randomly running around. How many eggs is this queen possibly laying that we're getting this many xenomorphs?
This is supposed to be like a hive mentality, right? They're all working to support a queen and the colony, and everything they do is supposed to support that. But what we get here is essentially a bunch of slashers.
I was about to say it's a slasher movie. They're just like going from house to house and neighborhood to neighborhood, but there's no purpose to it. And the other point I was going to make is we once again get the fucking alien lifespan, the life cycle of the alien sped up or slowed down depending on what the plot fucking needs. Like, these hunters get face huggered, an alien pops out of them, and suddenly there's a fucking full-grown adult. Like, okay.
Was there any canon established on the alien life cycle? Because you're right, they do grow very quickly from a little chest burster to the full-size alien. But at that point, do they just stay the same size and that's it? Or do they die quicker? What's the lifespan of an alien, I guess, is my question to you.
Oh, I don't know what their eventual lifespan is. I don't know if they mutate even further. See, this is all something interesting that a skilled writer could do with the xenomorphs as characters. But my point is that it's established in the first Alien movie that there's at least a few days between impregnation of an alien embryo till its chest bursting, and then a day maybe or two before we get the full-blown warrior or drone. And here it's like a matter of hours. It's like now people, when they get bitten by a zombie, they turn into a zombie, as opposed to in the Romero sense where you die from whatever and then you come back. Here it's like it's a game of tag.
Without knowing, getting back to the story and the setting and how it might have been improved, my impression, without knowing actually what transpired, is that it's as if somebody said to themselves, okay, look, my uncle has access to all these sets. Let's say my uncle owns a hardware store and someone wants me to make them a Predator movie. So let's write something that takes place exclusively in a hardware store and we'll figure out the story as we go.
And we've already got a Predator suit.
Right. That's because it felt, okay, we have access to these locations in Vancouver or wherever it was. We don't have a lot of money, but we know we can shoot at a hospital, a power plant, and a diner or something. Let's figure out a movie based on all these places we can shoot, these locations, and everything else will fall into place. Because I think, again, if you came at this, instead of that way of creating a script, a screenplay, if you had started by saying, look, I want to make a kick-ass Alien versus Predator movie. How do I do that? Let's put the budget aside for a minute. Let's figure this out. We want to start on the Predator homeworld. We get the distress signal. He does all. How do we get from A to B? And then let's make something cool out of that. I got the sense that they started, it's like Johnny Bravo in the Brady Bunch, right? He fit the suit. That's why he's Johnny Bravo. There was no greater plan around it. I get the sense here, they're like, we can shoot at these locations in Vancouver. Let's figure it out and it'll make sense eventually. That's my lasting impression of the story of this movie.
Yeah, it's all hastily slapdashed together, both in intent and in drama. I can't figure this story out at all. I don't care about any of these characters. It's the least invested I've been in any of the scenarios or any of the characters thus far, including the aliens. They're just the xenomorphs themselves are just an irritant here more than anything, unless they're being totally fucking disgusting, which is fine. I don't mind aliens being totally fucking disgusting. It's just that I want the movie to be better around it. I can handle a shock moment. I can handle a revulsion moment. Those are fine, but it has to be supported by a film and a plot and a point of view and an idea somewhere. This film had nothing to say at all about anything.
It offered cheap thrills. That's all you're getting with this. This is something that probably would play pretty well at a drive-in if you were of a certain bent and you just wanted to sit back and check your mind out and just go, all right, what's going to happen here? That's fine. There's a place for drive-in movies, but there's so many corners cut and needless complexity added to what should be a very straightforward movie of Predator trying to track down these xenomorphs, humans caught in the crossfire. Let's make something interesting out of that. And that's not what we got at all. So really, they're 0 for 2 in sequels here. They're 0 for 2 in Alien Predator crossovers, unfortunately.
Yeah, our only hope is Trachtenberg because he's laying the Weyland-Yutani Predator groundwork with an android with the Badlands. But anyway, we'll get to that eventually. I know we keep hinting at it as if we have any knowledge, but we don't. But we'll just hope. We got hope. That's what we got, baby.
It's very difficult to talk about these movies and not try to bring up the dawn of a new era in Predator filmmaking because, again, we've already said it in the last few movies we've talked about, but Trachtenberg he's doing so much right. And going through the exercise of seeing these earlier missteps makes me appreciate these later movies all the more. Really, because this guy figured out the formula. He figured out how to build a better mousetrap. So good on him.
He does represent a dawn. It can't get any darker than this. Quite literally, this is the darkest movie I've ever seen. You'll be wondering, what just happened? Quite frequently.
I know I did. Like I said, I thought the Predalien was killed much earlier in the movie. I was really surprised to see him pop up later because I thought he was already dead.
And in the end, with a nuclear warhead falling, what did any of it matter?
I don't know. I guess I'll have to see in the next movie if they even relate back to this one at all. I suspect they didn't because I don't think this was a very successful movie. I'm just guessing.
This movie made like $130 million based on a $40 million budget. I'd say it did pretty good, actually.
Yikes.
But not good enough to dissuade them from accepting Ridley Scott's offer to come back to the franchise. Thus, no AVP3, which I'm sure somebody somewhere was really hoping for. Anyway, that next movie you're talking about, tune back here to Yautja Fest in 2 weeks if you're on the regular feed. Otherwise, you're probably listening to this anyway if you're on the Patreon. Anyway, that movie is Predators. From the mind of Robert Rodriguez back in 93, 94, they asked him to write a sequel to Predator. He wrote Predators. Then years and years later, this is the movie we're going to get. Until then, HP, where can people find you if they're looking for you?
I co-host the Night Mr. Walters A Taxi podcast with you, Father Malone, of course. So please check that out. I'm an occasional guest on the Culture Cast with Chris Dashew. I host another podcast called The Noise Junkies. It's a music podcast. And last but not least, I have a Bandcamp site, hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com.
As for me, midnight viewing, you're here. Father Malone Weekly Roundup on Mondays. We got a fest on a Friday or I don't know, Tales from the Dark Side or something. Thank you all for joining us here. We really appreciate your continued patronage. And I mean that even if you're listening for free. All right.
Leads, we can kill it.
I ain't got time.
There's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no
Get to the chopper! What the hell are you?
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.